Today's guest is Kristen Hayer. She is the founder and CEO of the Success League. Hello, Kristen. The Success League is a global customer-focused consulting and training firm. Kristen's background includes leading award-winning sales, marketing, and customer success teams in both early growth stage tech companies. She's the host of several podcasts as well on CS and leadership. She's written over 100 articles on the field of customer success, and she actually recently co-authored with 5 other CS thought leaders the Customer Success Talent Playbook, which recently hit #1 on Amazon in 5 categories. Awesome. Kristen received her MBA from the University of Washington and splits her time between San Francisco and San Felipe, Mexico. Kristen, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
It's good to see you, Mikey. Thanks.
So can you maybe first start by setting the stage of kind of like the company and the time that you were the time at which this came up, this story that you'll get into more details in the next few minutes as well.
Yeah, so the story really starts in 2019, and as you can imagine, that's right about pandemic time. And so around that time, pre-pandemic, we were a really busy team. I had a team of 6 consultants at that point in time, including myself, and I was personally on the road about 50% of the time, which is a lot. Um, in hindsight, probably too much time. But my team was similarly busy, and all of us were doing training and consulting, and it was a really high time in our business. And most of the work that we did was in person. And so that's kind of the scene. So think 2019, think pre-pandemic 2019, and we can go from there.
Yeah, what could possibly change in
What
the
could
months that
possibly
follow?
go wrong?
So let's get into it. Yeah, what was the problem that arose for you?
So I'll talk about our blind spot.
Yeah.
As I was thinking about this interview and I was thinking about different things I could talk about in my business, and trust me, this is not the only blind spot. This is just a big noticeable one and one that might actually help other people. So I thought this would be a good one to talk about. But um, our blind spot was the fact that even before the pandemic, there was a trend of people starting to work more and more from home. And I think
Mhm.
everyone forgets that because it sort of instantly forced everyone to work from home for a period of time, unless you were in a field where you just couldn't do that. But in tech, which is where we do most of our work, all of our customers suddenly had everyone working from home. So we went from a company that was very focused on everything in person to a company that could not do that. And if I had been paying attention and looking at that trend, I would have thought, hmm, probably we should come up with some other ways to deliver our services because, this is going to be a trend in the future and we should get on it. And instead, because I was so busy, I didn't take the time to look at that trend as thoroughly as I should have. And the
Mhm.
pandemic came and everyone was working from home and no one wanted to go into the office because it just wasn't safe. And um, all of our services immediately had to be changed to be delivered remotely. Also, because I had been on the road so much, I was one of the first people that got COVID. So I was one of like, I'm probably like one of the people that spread it around. I mean, I was traveling so much at that point, and so there was that. So I was out of commission for a while, and we had to immediately move all of our services to remote, which was tough. So that was our big blind spot. And it was a mistake on my part to ignore the signs that this was an overall trend.
Yeah, I mean an understandable mistake, but yeah, I'm curious kind of once the S hit the fan, how did you start to solve for it? And even maybe before we get into that, I'm curious, like other what was the impact of on your business of kind of people moving towards work from home when you had initially kind of been focused on in person? What was the end business impact of that?
Well, so the business impact was that everyone just froze for about a quarter and wasn't doing anything. So we had a hit from that. And then when everybody did start going, okay, we have to still work, um, everyone's working from home, and all of our services had been very designed around, training people in person, doing consulting in person, going into an office and pulling together groups of people in person. And so it was a massive change to every single service we offered. The biggest one, and this was our biggest hit, was one of the services we offer is journey mapping. Um,
Hmm.
and journey mapping is a very cross-functional effort and is a very it's a very, I hate to say it, but it's kind of an emotional thing. People get really fired up about the customer journey. And when you do it in person, it's really nice because you can surface all of those feelings. You can talk them through. People can feel like they were heard. And when you try to take that pretty intense, 2 days of effort and do it online, it doesn't work very well. That's the
Yeah.
one service that I feel like we never really figured out how to replicate it in as good of a way. Every other
Hmm.
service we have, we had to really hustle and we had to, change, you know, what we were doing, but we had that quarter of everything being dead to kind of work on
Hmm.
that. And journey mapping just could never really recover in the same way as the other services. So, I mean, I think that was a big impact because journey mapping is a big part of what we do and helping
Hmm.
companies think through what their customer journey should look like. It comes after segmentation, which is very easy to do remotely, and
Hmm.
it comes before, figuring out your staffing model, which is also very easy to do remotely, but it needs to be done
Right.
in person. And so that was tough. Yeah.
How did you solve for it? Like, I mean, I know you mentioned there was this pause. It's like, what do we do? Taking a quarter of just shell shock. It sounds like almost, which I think everyone was
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And what was, yeah, the start of like kind of the path forward?
I mean, we did trial and error. This was one where I thought, okay, well, let's try to just replicate it as close to the current format as possible, just over Zoom. That was my
Hmm.
first instinct. And what I learned very quickly is because everything was happening on Zoom, Zoom meeting fatigue is real. And
Hmm.
people after like 2 hours were zoning out. Whereas if they had been in a
Right.
room together, we would have kept everybody's attention for that time. So we had to, kind of cut to shorter meetings. When we stretched those shorter meetings out over too long a period of time, we found that everybody would forget before the next meeting
Yeah.
what they decided in the last meeting, and we lost momentum. So what we ended up kind of landing on, and I still it is still not a perfect way to do it, is we landed on a 2 week period where either every other day or every day we would get smaller groups of people together online for a couple of hours and we would work through their pieces of the journey, and then at the end we would loop back around to the entire group and kind of present what we had come up with. And that was the closest we could get. We also tried lots of different visual aids for this. Like we tried Excel, we tried um, like a whiteboard app, we tried, and it's just nothing is the same as being in a room and having people put post-its on a whiteboard or write on a whiteboard. It's just a lot more engaging. And so,
Right.
yeah, we went through a lot of different iterations of trying various things to make that work. And so nothing really worked as well as in person, but we made it happen. Um,
Yeah.
so to our customers who, had to do this during that period of time, I'm sorry it wasn't as good as it could be, but I mean, we did the best we could with what we all had to work with. And so um that's one though now that I still believe strongly that it's best done in person. So
Yeah.
we have the
Yeah.
alternative of doing it online.
Totally. And I feel like what resonates with me in this and probably with a lot of folks that would be listening is, um, sure, there's a return to office in general right now, but like there's a lot of customers that you're going to work with if you're in the CS space that they're not going to have an office. Like they are a remote
Yeah.
first company. And how do you make sure that you can kind of retrofit things that are better in person and fit them into the remote virtual landscape? And that's sales. Like you'd rather sell in person. You're not always going to be able to. You'd rather meet your customers in person. You're not
Yeah.
always going to be able to. I really like your the takeaway you had of like a workshop that might be better over 2 hours in person, and the challenge you brought up about kind of how do you maintain momentum without losing attention within a session, like how navigating that. And to me, I really like the idea of kind of the pre-planned like commitment from a client, whether it be you're in an enablement process and you're starting with a new customer at in a SaaS company, or you're I'll use that example because that's actually the most relevant to me. But
Hmm.
thinking about it not as let's schedule one meeting and then let's have the next meeting and then let's have the next meeting. And by the time we've had the third, we've all forgotten what happened in the first. But if
Yeah.
you can create into your enablement program commitments and dates that are necessary without having the long 3 hour meeting, but also not having to stretch out over 2 months, like that, I've noticed that so much of losing the momentum of knowledge, of education, of enablement. And curious if you have any additional thoughts of what's worked well for kind of when you are forced to still stick to the remote, even in the non-ideal case.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you design for shorter engagements and the reality of Zoom or whatever tool it is you're using, that will be better. I mean, one other thing that we've done since the pandemic is we've created on-demand versions of all of our classes.
Mm-hmm.
And up until this past year, we had been teaching everything live, which I feel really strongly about. I think that in general, people learn better in a live training environment, not necessarily in person, but with a live instructor online.
Right.
And so, when we switched to that, we did not just record ourselves teaching. We thought about the actual vehicle we were going to use to deliver the on-demand training, and we created short form video format of all of our classes so that people who were watching with a TikTok attention span would be able to, quickly go through the videos. We broke it up with a lot of exercises and storytelling, and so the content of the classes is identical to what we teach in our classes that are live online, but the format is completely different because we needed to match the format to the delivery mechanism. And I would encourage people who are thinking about this for their own businesses to think about, just because you're delivering something successfully in one format doesn't mean it's going to translate effectively to a different format. You're probably going to have to make some major shifts, just like we did with our training classes, just like we did with our journey mapping.
Yeah,
And
totally.
that's okay. The
Right.
result will be the same if you give it enough thought. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And inherent in that as well, I think it's if you are a CS leader that or an enablement leader or whatnot, and you go from one company to the next, like there's the medium, and then there's the recipient of that training, the recipient of that enablement. Like
Hmm.
different industries, different buyers require different and expect different experiences, and meeting them where
Yeah.
they are as well has come up a lot in the interviews I've been doing here, and totally resonates with me.
Yeah.
Anything, I mean, you kind of alluded to the takeaway, I think, but any other important takeaways that you took from this or that you'd want someone listening today to take away? Uh,
I mean, I think one thing I want to hit on is how our KPIs changed. And for me before this, as the owner of the company, I was really very focused on-site deliverable time with my clients. And
mhm.
I had to really shift my thinking around that to be thinking more broadly about our billable hours. It shifted how I thought about even our margins for the business. And so, if you're making a big change kind of like this, to your products, you will have to kind of go back to your KPIs and think through, what are you going to measure? How are you going to measure things? And it might be a little different. And even though, everything I had read about having a successful consulting firm said, think about the on-site time and measure things, that's your main metric, I had to rethink that and kind of come up with what was our real metric for our business and kind of be my own consultant for my own company for a little bit and figure it out. And so, that's one takeaway. I think the bigger thing though is, if you're facing something like this where you have to make a major change in your business, um, be creative with your planning and be really holistic about your planning. Um, Also, keep an eye on the things that are happening in business at large, because if I had been doing a better job of keeping an eye on the trend toward people working remotely, I would have definitely had backup plans in place for organizations that did not have everybody in the same place at the same time. And it would have been a
Right.
lot easier going into the emergency of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So,
Makes a ton of sense, and completely agree with that. Uh,
I mean, you can't
I
plan
could,
for everything, but yeah, you can plan for
right.
some things. And, so yeah,
Yeah,
those are
and
my
it's like
big
it's the macro
takeaways.
trends, it's the industry trends, it's and just internal trends. Like, have we suddenly shifted our customers to more enterprise customers, and do they actually require something different in terms of how we're enabling? Have we added new verticals? Do new products require different mediums for education? Like, there's all of these kind of micro moments within the business development that you obviously are talking about, one of the biggest shifts
Yeah.
ever, but like there's a lot of smaller scale ones that are really that's very reflective of kind of similar changes you might be going through as a leader today, that hopefully we're not living through any pandemics anytime soon, but you might go through a relevant shift in your business where I think
I
this is
mean,
highly applicable.
yeah, absolutely. And I think the big one right now is AI. So it's not just
Yeah.
about how AI is going to impact you in your company. It's how is AI going to impact your customers and their companies, and what does that mean for what you're delivering to them? And not just them, their employees, it's broad. And so, as we're thinking about it, we had a big discussion at our team offsite about how are we going to incorporate AI into the offerings that we provide to our customers. And then we started talking about what does that mean for the customers, and
Right.
what does that then mean for their businesses, and what is going to be the overall impact, and are we missing something? And
Yeah.
I think right now, with everybody talking about AI, most of the people I hear talking about it are very internally focused, and I think that might be a mistake. Think about it more broadly. Think about the business impacts. Yeah.
Yeah. Completely agree with that. As always, I really appreciate the time. I love having conversations with you. If you have not checked out the Success League, I also recommend checking out their consultations and their different courses. A really awesome business and service that you provide. But Kristen, I hope that you have a great week, and great to talk to you as always.
Thanks so much. It's great talking with you. And yeah, this has been a great conversation. Thanks, Mikey.